Hey guys, well, this is Chef 2K here. Welcome back to the Hess Sports Podcast. This is episode 2. We're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about the NFL and college football. We've had a crazy week 2 in college football, and even more crazy in the NFL. We got a lot of questions about a lot of teams, so we're going to get right into it. I'm going to give you my take on the last week's action and then preview the next week's as well. And yeah. So the first one I'm going to start with, I'm going to talk about the NFL. Also, by the way, before I get into it, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in to the last episode. 51 views for 9 subscribers. That's pretty dang good. So thank you so much for watching it. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you I hope you continue to support me. Hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more. Share it with your friends. But anyway, we're going to get right into the NFL. I'm going to review the week. 16 games were played. I was right on a lot of them. I got 13 of my predictions right over the week. The only ones that I was wrong on was the Cleveland Browns, the Buccaneers, and the Lions. Now, had the Lions actually won and kept their lead 24-6, I would have gotten the score right on the money because I said the Lions would win 24-6 last week. The Browns had a disappointing loss, to the Tennessee Titans. They lost 43-13. They looked great the first drive. They go up 6-3, and they look great. But Baker turns the ball over 3 times, and that's not going to get it done. You can't turn the ball over when you can't turn the ball over. Not in week 1, even though it's early. You can't do it in week 1, even though it's okay because it's the first week and there's a lot of jitters. But you can't turn the ball over. If you turn the ball over, you lose. And Marcus Mariota had a great game. He threw for 3 touchdowns and one 93-yarder to Derrick Henry. And I got let me pull up the box score right real fast. I think there's a lot to be said about playing in the preseason. Yes, you don't want to play your starters too much for the fear factor of them getting hurt. And some people say that, and some people don't even want the preseason. There's something to be said about, the preseason though, because in college, they don't have preseason. They have preseason games, but those games actually count in college. And the NFL, the preseason games don't count. Maybe if they were to go down to like 2 games, but I don't think the Cleveland Browns starters played a whole lot in the preseason, and that hurt, and a lot of that experience, hurts you because you're not getting those snaps. I mean, look at how Ezekiel Elliott played. I mean, he only had like 56 yards of rushing, and he looked great, but he didn't play at all in the preseason. Dak looked great, but the Browns for the talking that they did all season, and now it's my opinion that it may have been because of the media, hyping them up, asking them questions, how good do you think you're going to be? Most likely they're going to answer, I think we're going to be pretty good. We better watch out because we're going to be pretty good. So, what do you want them to say? I mean, yes, they could say, well, we're looking to be better. We're going to be better this last year. I mean, it's pretty hard to find a team player that says, we're going to be pretty bad this year. Because that's not the mindset that you want to have on a football team, because if your players don't believe that you're gonna be very good, then you won't. I think the Cleveland Browns can learn from this experience. 43-13 is a pretty bad outing, but I think this is a good learning experience. I hope it humbles them, because they got to go on and face the Jets, who also lost a tough game. They were up 16-0 up on the Bills, and hopefully they can rebound. But for now, it's a good learning experience. Baker's got to stop throwing. Can't turn it over next time. I think the Titans' defense is a lot better than will be a lot better this year than people thought. Even though they have Kevin Byard still, I think their defense will keep them in games. And if Mariota keeps playing the way that he is, and if Mariota can keep playing the way that he did on Sunday, and the receiver and they all do their jobs, then they're going to be a pretty good team. Can they beat the Patriots or Chiefs? Probably not. But I would, if they keep playing that way, honestly, there's not many people that could stop it. I think what hinders the Titans a lot, especially in previous years, is that the receivers just drop passes. A lot of times I watch Titans highlights, and Mariota throws a ball and the receiver drops a catchable ball, and it pans right back to Mariota, and he's just like, dismayed. And so I think that, and I think if they can do that, because apparently they caught the ball. Mariota was 14 of 24 for 248 yards and 2 touchdowns, as I said. Derrick Henry had an okay game. He had 84 yards on 19 attempts and 1 touchdown. But Derrick Henry also did have a 75-yard touchdown. They could be pretty formidable. But the Browns, Shannon Sharp said it best on Undisputed the other day that, the Browns appeared to have quit that time. Things weren't going well, and they started to hang their heads. And a team that's been losing, that's used to losing, is going to do that, which he says explains, the 0-16 or the 1-15 records. Because a team that's used to losing usually folds their heads and doesn't try very hard anymore. But hopefully that's not the case this year, because a lot of people have the Browns going to the playoffs and being better than last year. Freddie Kitchens is going to have to. I think this is something that Freddie Kitchens is going to have to manage, because there's a lot of how should I say that? There's a lot of egos in that locker room, or characters, or I don't know whatever you guys want to call it. But there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in that locker room that's easy to lose, because they've been talking all off season. We're going to be better, and that obviously didn't look the case last time. Although there were some good things, there were ultimately more bad things than good things, and I think they'll bounce back for this versus the Jets. And the Baltimore Ravens won over the week 59-10. I predicted the blowout. I predicted the blowout because the Dolphins aren't very good. I didn't think that they would have 59 points. I thought it was going to be. Let's see what I have over here. I said the Ravens would win 46-17 because of Ryan Fitzpatrick on the Dolphins. I thought he'd be good enough to get. I think he's a good enough quarterback to at least get him there, but obviously they weren't. And that Ravens defense is going to be scary. That team's going to be scary. I know it's the Dolphins, but in all reality, that's a team that you should blow out, and they took care of business just like the Cowboys did versus the Giants, if you handle your business, you'll be good. The Detroit Lions tied the Cardinals after being up 24-6, as I said before. The Cardinals can't protect Kyler Murray very well yet, which is a question mark going into here. Although they did have a good rally, the Lions, Kyler Murray was sacked 5 times, but they did tie it. In my opinion, it's more of a loss. If you're a Lions fan, it feels more like a loss, than it does a tie. Because you're up 24-6. Both teams are pretty bad. I think both teams are pretty bad, and I feel bad for Matthew Stafford because I don't think the Lions quite deserve him. I think if you replaced Matthew Stafford with Mitchell Trubisky, I think the Bears would be a lot better than they are. The Cardinals need to protect Kyler Murray a bit more, but he did start to find a rhythm because I think the Lions kind of rested on their morals. We're up 24-6 right now. There's no way we can lose, and so they packed their bags in, and they let their guard down. In the NFL, with the way that the offenses are built now these days, you can't afford to do that. In the past, it's been 24-6. Okay, the team doesn't have any. It's just running and stuff. Well, now we're going towards the college route. Where it's all faster and more, there's more tempo and more passing. And I think that's kind of what plagued Dallas a little bit. The last few years, Dallas has been primarily a running team. They rely on the run more than they do the pass. They eat clock and keep the ball out of the opposing team's hands. Because their defense has been the weakest link. And so when they got down, they didn't have enough. They didn't have the right play. They didn't have the right style of play calls to be able to come back when they're down deficits. I think Kellen Moore did a good job over the weekend. I think the offense looked good for the Cowboys, and so I think and they looked like they were more balanced. But anyway, back to the Cardinals. There's some good and bad, obviously. 6 being down 24-6, that's a good rally. The coach is saying, hey, we were down. The coach is telling his young team, because this is a young team. They got new players, and the coach is probably said after the game, hey, we got down early, but you guys rallied and finished well. We didn't win it, but this is a learning curve. So treat this while we wanted to win. Tying's the better alternative, and good job with that. So for the Cardinals, it may feel like more of a win and a learning experience, and the Lions, it may feel more like a loss than a win because you were up by so much, and the Lions will have no choice but to learn from it. Both teams will learn and get better, but for now, they have a lot of problems. The Bengals had a good game, got a good game out of Andy Dalton, despite not having A.J. Green, who is out right now for the season, I think, right? Andy Dalton had a good game despite not having him. The Seahawks were favored by 9.5, and the Seahawks only won by 1. The defense for the Bengals isn't as deep as it has been, with Vontaze Burfict, or it's probably not as deep as it has been in the past, and thus will probably more likely give up a lot of points. But Andy Dalton torched the Seahawks through the air with 418 yards, 35 of 51 passing attempts, 35 completions to 51 attempts, 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. John Ross had an awesome game, 158 yards, 7 receptions for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. If they can get some more games out of that, if the Bengals can get some more production out of that, and they can, if they can get more games like that out of Andy Dalton, who hasn't been very consistent over the last few years. He'd have a game here or there where you say, oh, he looks like a good quarterback, and then the next game you say, where did Andy Dalton go? But if he can try and replicate that, I don't know if we'll have 418 passing yards again, because that's pretty good for a debut. But if he can keep up the production, and the defense can gel together, they'll win some games, and they may shock some teams. The Seahawks, are a team that usually starts out like this. Last year they lost to Denver to start off the season, and then all of a sudden they started winning, and they won 10 games last year. The Lions need to do a better job at protecting Russell Wilson. They sacked Russell Wilson 4 times, which is not compared to the Bengals getting sacked 5 times. But they need to do a better job at protecting them and establish more of a run game. They did have 72 rushing yards, but if Seattle wants to win more, they're gonna have to run it. They're gonna have to, 1, protect Russell Wilson better, and 2, run the ball better. They're gonna have to be better. The Seahawks are gonna have to be better on 3rd down. They're only 4 for 12 compared to the Bengals 6 for 15. Not too big of a disparity, but you have to be better on 1st down. On 3rd down. The penalties, you can clean up the penalties, but that's week 1. Penalties happen week 1. Another team that I was surprised with was the 49ers. I picked the Buccaneers to beat them last week because I didn't believe in the Niners defense. I had to see how the Niners defense would play, and if it wasn't for a couple of if it wasn't for a Jimmy Garoppolo interception in the early game, instead of 31-17, it might be 31-10. Because other than that, they had no shot. The Niners offense since I've seen the 49ers play defense, I believe in them more now, and I think I think they could be a dark horse. The Bucks, I think the one problem that hinders the Bucks is Jameis Winston. Now he's good when he wants to be, when he really slows it down, but he just throws too many interceptions, He throws bad passes, the team, he stares down his receivers, which you can't do in the NFL. You can do a little bit of that in college, but you can't. But in the NFL, you stare down a receiver the entire way, or you throw it into coverage. It's going to be an interception most of the time because receivers don't have because you only have a little bit of a window. This is considered wide open. In college, this is considered wide open. But I think it's time. Now we'll have to see how Winston finishes the year, but he's got to clean up the turnovers just like Baker Mayfield. You can't turn the ball over. They got to keep the penalties down. Again, it's week 1, but they did rush the ball pretty well. The Buccaneers did. They had Ronald Jones went 75 yards for 13 attempts, and Peyton Barber also had a good one. Jameis Winston fumbled 2 times apparently. They had 4 turnovers, so he lost 1 and gained 1, and got 1 back. So there's the 4 turnovers because he had 3 interceptions as well. The Buccaneers, I think it's a lost season for the Buccaneers. It depends on how Jameis Winston adjusts and finishes the year. The Niners, I think I think the Niners will be better, will be even better next week. Or, Richard Sherman looks healthy again. He got his first interception of the year, which apparently he didn't have, apparently he didn't have all last year, which is the first time in his career without at least 1 interception. The Cowboys looked good. As I said before, I didn't think that they had it in them. I thought it was going to be more of the Zeke attack, running. Which is why they gave him the contract. Kellen Moore has seems to have designed his offense more around the strengths of Dak as opposed to the weaknesses of Dak, which is why they kept running Zeke because it was more, because it featured Zeke more because of the struggles with Dak, but Kellen Moore has flipped it. He's made it. He's played to Dak's strengths, which is dumping it short and then hitting over the top. Dak had a career high. Dak had a career high 405 yards, 4 touchdowns, 25 of 32 yards of passing, and 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. Michael Gallup was his top receiver, who caught all the balls thrown his way with 7 for 7, 7 targets, 7 receptions, so 158 yards for an average of 22.6 yards. No touchdowns, and then Amari Cooper had another 106 yards. He dropped 3 passes. He had a touchdown in Randall Cobb, which I think was a great addition. I think the Packers offense is going to miss Randall Cobb because I think Randall Cobb Randall Cobb was a different, just similar to how Jordy Nelson was for Randall Cobb before Devontae Adams got there. Before Jordy Nelson it was Greg Jennings. Before Greg Jennings it was Donald Driver for a lot of years, and then Greg Jennings got on the team, and then Jordy Nelson came. Donald Driver retires, and then Randall Cobb comes in 2011. Greg Jennings is still there, and Greg Jennings leaves in 2 years, I think it was, and then you always had that receiver. And I don't know who that is yet for the Packers yet, because Devontae Adams is currently the number 1, which last year he was a number 2. I think Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams split time as the 1 and 2 last year. We have yet to see who that number 2 will be this year. The Packers defense looked really good. But anyway, back to the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys will have to clean up their run game. It is their rushing defense. Saquon Barkley Barkley did tear him up. He had 120 yards of rushing on 11 carries. He averaged 10 yards a carry, almost 11 yards a carry. That's not going to get it done. I think they have to improve on that end of the ball because the next team that they play, Cowboys' next team, the Cowboys play the Redskins next game, and anyway, they're gonna have to. they don't face a rushing team next week, but they're gonna have to shore it up because they will face good rushing teams down the road, and who knows, you know. But good job by Dak. The rushing defense needs to improve because you can't let that happen. If the Giants had better receivers, and you know, maybe it's a lot closer. But Saquon Barkley was really the only one. Was really the only weapon the Giants had. The Eagles were okay. You know, they got down early, but they gave up an early lead, but then they fought their way back in. You know, Carson Wentz didn't play a whole lot either in the preseason, and so it takes a while sometimes to get acclimated again. So it's understandable. The Patriots look great. We'll have to see what happens with Antonio Brown, as we all know that he's not facing a rape accusation or a lawsuit right now. Yeah, but as it stands right now, I think the Patriots as they looked versus the Steelers, they look pretty unbeatable. You know, Josh Gordon had an amazing game. Julian Edelman still can't be stopped. You know, they were running it. They had some success running the ball. I don't know. You know, they had a lot of balance. They had 99 yards rushing, 366 passing yards. The Steelers are an odd case. I do commend them, however, for moving on from Antonio Brown, because let me tell you that kind of person does not, that kind of attitude does not gel well in the locker room. That destroys. You know, you can't have that kind of personality. You can't have that kind of personality in your locker room, especially when you're trying to win or how to win. You know, I feel bad for the Raiders. They did get their win, like I said, like I predicted, but yeah, in my opinion, if I was the league, I would kick him out, because you can't have that. You know, the Raiders, the helmet issue and the feet problems had nothing to do with the Raiders, and all he had to do was show up to practice. If he had just shown up to practice, he wouldn't have had those fines, and they wouldn't have made a deal. But because he didn't show up, you know, because he didn't show up to practices or play in the preseason, it ultimately led to his demise. And I don't think that kind of personality will fit with the Patriots. Now, I could be wrong, but you know, will Antonio Brown sacrifice his numbers for winning? Because the Patriots don't need Antonio Brown. As the Patriots showed on Sunday, the Patriots don't need Antonio Brown. Will he be fine with, you know, 3 catches for 56 yards and touchdown and they win? Or will he throw fits? You know, if he shows it, because they run a tight shift in New England, you know, not a lot flies. But back to the Steelers. I do commend, as I said before, I do commend him for moving on from Antonio Brown, because you can't have that in the locker room, because it destroys, because it's divisive. Big Ben wasn't all that impressive. They were 3 of 12 on third down, which is horrible. He was sacked 7 times. Or no, he wasn't sacked 7 times. He was sacked once. They both sacked once. They turned the ball over. Skip Bayless was talking about how Big Ben has been talking about retiring, and that Big Ben didn't look all that interested in it, and maybe maybe he's contemplating it because he didn't look interested in it. He missed a lot of throws, and he didn't seem to show a lot of urgency. The lead kept growing, and he didn't seem to care about the outcome. So that's a disappointment. The Bears were a disappointment. The Steelers, as I said before, the Lions, Bucks, and Browns were all disappointments. But I do think the Browns will rebound. I'm not sure about the Bears because of the quarterback. I figured their defense would be pretty good, and it was. But their quarterback just got him. They just kept punting. The quarterback couldn't stop himself. Mitchell Trubisky couldn't stop himself from making mistakes, and I think that's worrying to me. Anyway, to get into week 2 now, we start off the year. We start off on Thursday tomorrow with the Buccaneers taking on the Panthers. I think the Panthers will get a win here because I think the defense of the Panthers will be too much for the James Winston. I think Winston turns the ball over too much to warrant any confidence. So I say the Panthers blow them out. It's going to be closer. I think it's going to be similar to the 49ers game, so I'm going to say 33-16. But I think James Winston has another turnover game. Then Sunday we have the Seahawks taking on the Steelers. It's an interesting game because the Seahawks they only won by 1 point versus the Bengals. The Steelers will be looking to rebound. After we'll see where Big Ben's head is in this game. If he loses again, if it's another bad loss, which I think it could be, will it get worse? The Seahawks, I think, will get better as they always do. I think their defense will be more prepared to play. I don't think the Seahawks defense really believed in Andy Dalton, and thus didn't think they had to cover anyone, which they found out the hard way that they did. And so I think they know for sure that Big Ben can have big games. So I think they'll be more focused this week. So I say that the Seahawks, while I do think that Seahawks will win it, I think the Steelers will also put up their points. So I'm going to say the Seahawks win 24-20 on the road. Then I got the 49ers at Bengals. This is an intriguing matchup to me because the 49ers forced 4 turnovers and 3 sacks versus the Buccaneers. The 49ers have the offense as well, but the Bengals last week, as I said before, got a good game from Andy Dalton despite not having A.J. Green and only lost by 1 point. The Niners, if they can do what they did on defense again versus the Bengals, which I don't think has a very good defense right now. I mean, they got a good one, but they don't have. But as I said before, they don't have the depth that they once had. So I say the 49ers win. I think they might win big again, but for now I'm gonna say I think the 49ers win 27-20 and go to 2-0 on the road. The Chargers will blow out the Lions. Lions don't have a shot. I don't think. Lions are struggling right now. So I say the Chargers win 35-14. And then we have Packers at Vikings, or Vikings at Packers. This is an intriguing game. I'm having trouble deciding which games I'm having trouble deciding a score because the Vikings have had the Packers number for the last few years. The Packers, they did tie last year to start off their season, and I'm not and the Packers are favored by 3 points, but it's a matter of the Packers defense because this week we'll have to see, was it bad Chicago offense, or was it good Packers defense? And I think Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback than Mitchell Trubisky. But Vikings have decided this year that they would be a run first team, much like the Cowboys. Kirk Cousins would have his good games, but he would throw a pass to the wrong team at the wrong time, and they would lose a lot of games where they shouldn't have. Let's see how that is. So for now, I'm going to hold off on that. But I do think I do think the Packers can win by 3. I'll take the Packers 3. I'll take the Vikings. Let's see. I have the Vikings winning. I'll have to come back to that. I don't know yet. I'll have to make my mind up. We got the Colts at Titans. I think the Titans win 30-27. I liked what the Colts did versus the Chargers. It looked like it was going to get out of hand, but the Colts found their way and they started scoring points. But I do think that the Titans will make a play late, and 30-27 is the score for the Titans over the Colts. The Patriots get to go to Miami. I don't see Miami hanging in here. The Patriots are favored by 19 points. That's a pretty big margin for an NFL game. I like that, but I think it's going to be worse than it is. It's probably going to look more like the Ravens game. So I'm going to say 46-10 Patriots over Dolphins. Especially since Antonio Brown will play now. The Bills at Giants. I think this is an intriguing matchup as well. The Bills defense versus Saquon Barkley. I'd like to think that Dallas has a good defense, but Saquon Barkley did rush for 120 yards on 11 carries. The Bills defense is there, but which I think will be better than the Cowboys D. They have more. I think the Bills have a more experienced D. They have the Bills defense includes people like Matt Milano, Lorenzo Alexander, which I like, Tremaine Edwards. They've got Trent Murphy out of Stanford, who was really good. I like Trent Murphy. He was incredible at Stanford. Ed Oliver, there's a lot to like on that defense. And in terms of the offense, the Bills, I think Josh Allen could have a good game. The Giants don't have the defense, but it could be closer but it could be close. I like what they did I like the weapons they added. They do have a really old Frank Gore, but they also have T.J. Yeldon now. The receivers include John Brown for the Bills and Cole Beasley. I think the Bills get them here, but I think I think it's gonna be a close game. So I say the Bills beat the Giants 20-17 for the simple fact that I think Barkley could have another good game. May end up having another good game. Then we have the Cowboys at Redskins. I have got the Cowboys simply based on their talent and talent alone. I have them beating the Redskins 24-15, and the Cowboys go to 2-0 to start the season, and they are 2-0 in the division. I think the Redskins are still getting better. I don't think Case Keenum will have the same impact that he did versus the Eagles. So I think Cowboys get it. The Cardinals are taking on the Ravens. This is another blowout. I think the Ravens will be too much for the Cardinals. I don't think Kyler Murray quite has the line to protect him versus the Ravens, which I think the Lions, which I think is a better defense than the Lions. The Ravens defense is a lot better than the Lions. So I think it's going to be another field day for Lamar Jackson. So I say the Ravens win 49-7, and I think that 7 comes in garbage time, when it's over. I got the Jaguars, and then we got the Jaguars at Texans. This is another game that I circled. Yes, the Jaguars did lose Nick Foles, but Gardner Minshew was impressive versus the Chiefs. Chiefs, yes, it was over at that time, but Gardner Minshew did have a nice game. He comes from Washington State. He was the grad transfer from Washington State. I think he's going to be pretty good. I don't think they beat the Texans, but I think he could have. But I think he's a viable option for the Jaguars moving forward if Nick Foles can't come back, which is unfortunate considering the fact that this is how Nick Foles got his start, because of an injury to a quarterback. So it's kind of ironic, but it sucks. But I think the Texans win 33-24. The Chiefs. Then we got the Chiefs at Raiders. I think this is going to be a blowout, but I think it's going to be closer than you think. The Raiders, while they don't have the firepower that the Chiefs have, I think the Raiders on defense have but I do think the Raiders can make a few plays, and it's going to be closer than you think. So I think the Chiefs win a blowout, but it's 38-21, which is okay, which is still a blowout, but it's closer than you think. So I'd say 38-21 Chiefs. Then the Bears go on the road and take on the Broncos. I think this is another intriguing matchup. I don't think either team can score, similar to the Giants, Lions, and Cardinals right now. I think the Broncos' success is predicated more so on the run because Joe Flacco doesn't know who he likes yet, and I think the Broncos' success this year will come from their ability to run the ball. On Monday night, the Raiders. On Monday night, the Broncos didn't score. I looked at the score and they had kicked a field goal, and I looked at the rushing stats and the running back had 56 yards. And before that, they didn't have points yet, and it was only 6 yards of rushing. And so I think their success is more because I don't know who the Broncos have to throw to. Similar to the Bears, although I think the Broncos have a better quarterback than the Bears right now at this moment. Yes, the Bears have a defense, but we'll have to see how they play in that altitude. Denver is a hard place to play. The crowd is going to be loud. The Broncos but I think the Broncos do just enough to win 20-17. I think Broncos will make a play late, just similar to the Titans game. We got the Saints at Rams. This is going to be a revenge game for the Saints, given how last year's NFC Championship ended with the with the missed pass interference call, which didn't get called. The Chiefs, the Saints won a close game last week. We'll have to see how their defenses play. I think the Rams lost quite a bit on defense, but they still have Aaron Donald. They still have Aqib Talib, and they still have that offense. I think the Rams are going to win it again, but I think it's going to be a shootout. So say 33-30, but this could get ugly. You could see some. There's going to be a lot of emotions in this game. I don't know if it's because it's the Rams or if it'll be because of the call, but I think this could get pretty ugly. We might see some ejections, and thus the Saints will be looking to blow out will be looking trying too hard, as opposed to just going out there and doing their job. So I say the Rams win 33-30. Saints will get their points, but I think the Rams will. I think this will be the Saints' first loss. I do have the Saints going to the Super Bowl, but I think the Rams get them out. I think the Rams, since they're at home, get the win versus the Saints. Then the Eagles take on the Falcons. The Eagles. This is an intriguing matchup. I don't think the Falcons will be able to. I think the Falcons are. I think this could be the final year of Dan Quinn. If they don't make the playoffs, they just gave a contract to Julio Jones. He didn't really have much to say in the Vikings game. So I say the Eagles beat the Falcons 34-24 because I think Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Matt Ryan, and I think they have I think they have more firepower. The Eagles need to be careful though because Julio Jones might go off again, but I don't think the line for the Atlanta Falcons is quite there yet. They couldn't really. I don't think they could really protect Matt Ryan the other night or on Sunday versus the Vikings, who also have a pretty good defense. And then to end the week, we have the Browns on Monday night taking on the Jets. This is at New York. This is at MetLife Stadium. I think the Browns are going to play better, but I think it's going to be a low scoring game because I think the Browns might make a few mistakes early. Because they're trying to get that first win. Trying to make amends for last week. And so they might make a mistake early, that costs them early. But I think they can make more plays than the Jets will. I like the Jets may have Le'Veon Bell, but I think the Browns have more offensive weapons and defense than the Jets as of this moment. So I think it's going to be 17-14 Browns over the Jets. I've got a little bit of a theory about head coaches. Last week I said that the Broncos. I said the Raiders. The reason why I said the Raiders last week. The reason I said the Raiders would beat the Broncos was not because of the team. I know the Broncos have a better team, all-around team than the Raiders. It's not even close. They have the Broncos have Von Miller. They have Bradley Chubb and Roby and Joe Flacco. They have Emmanuel Sanders still. They have Royce Freeman. They've just got the better all around roster. But in my opinion, I think it takes more time for a defensive minded head coach to get going than it does an offensive mind. Jeff Fisher comes in for the Rams. He's a defensive-minded head coach, and he does all right, 7-8-1 in his first season. But just that, he never really had the offense. He could never really get the offense to go, and maybe that's because of the draft picks and stuff, or what. But you saw the difference. But you saw when they drafted Jared Goff, people were writing him off already because under Jeff Fisher. But the minute they hired Sean McVay, it was like that, instant, a whole lot better, most improved player, one of the most improved teams 2 years ago, Vic Fangio's the new, but John Gruden's, because John Gruden's an offensive mind, so the head coach for the Denver Broncos is Vic Fangio, who's a defensive coordinator, for the longest time. Never coached in the league before, never been a head coach. And then you have John Gruden, who's an offensive mind. He came under the he's from the same tree as Andy Reid, or under Mike Holmgren, who had people like Andy Reid on the Packers. There was Andy Reid, there was John Gruden, there was, a lot of coaches that are coaching right now from Mike Holmgren, and but I think it takes. But you saw it, Andy Reid takes over for Romeo Crennel, or the former Chiefs head coach, or whoever it was before Andy Reid got there, and they're immediately a playoff team. Matt Nagy, although I don't think the quarterback is the right fit, I think they had more weapons last year than they do this year. And no one saw the Bears coming, and Mitchell Trubisky, and they ran the ball pretty well last year. And now that the teams have film on the Bears, I think it made it harder. But you saw what a difference made. Frank Reich, they got back to the playoffs last year. They retooled. Chuck Pagano was a defensive mind, and it took him a while to get going. They 11-5 in 3 straight years when Andrew Luck was healthy, and then Frank Reich. They won 7-6, but their offense looked a lot better. Looked more like a offense than it did under Chuck Pagano, because they protected better. Mike Tomlin, I think, is the outlier because Steelers already had a great team around them. They already had Big Ben Roethlisberger. They still had Hines Ward and Willie Parker. So that's kind of an outlier. But Pete Carroll, it took some time for Pete Carroll to get it going at Seattle. He had he's a defensive-minded head coach. Rex Ryan, the defense was already there. So, and it took him a while to get going. Bill Belichick took him a while to get going. Mike Vrabel took them a while to get going. And so, yeah. So back to the Vikings and Packers. So I'm giving you the score. I think I'm still struggling with it, but I think that the Vikings win. I do think the Vikings win. I don't think Packers. I think Vikings win 20-17. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. So I got the Vikings 20-17. Another 2017. That's a safe. I think that's a safe score. I'm not too confident on that one. Because Packers are pretty unbeatable at home. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna switch it to Packers. I think Packers win 20-17 because it is at Lambeau. And so I think Packers win 20-17. That concludes the NFL portion. Now we're gonna head over to. We're now gonna head over to. Hold on, I'm gonna get some water real fast. We're gonna head over. That concludes the NFL portion. We're now going to head over to the NCAA. We're going to head over to the college football section. There's a lot of big questions. I think the biggest question that I have is Michigan. I'm worried about Michigan. They lost a close. They won. They're 2-0. They barely beat Army. 24. Beat them. They beat Army 24-21, I believe. Right? Yeah, double overtime. Michigan was favored by 22.5 points. So that's 3 touchdowns. I'm worried about Michigan. After watching Ohio State and after seeing how Ohio State dismantled Cincinnati and how Wisconsin's defense is improved, how Wisconsin's defense has shut out its opponents. Now, what I will say is that while USF or South Florida and whoever in the last team that they played may not be a contest for Wisconsin, but anytime you can shut out an opponent, that's how it should be. If you're that good, you should, Central Michigan and South Florida couldn't put up a point against Wisconsin. And you consider the fact that Michigan and Ohio State shut out Cincinnati, who Cincinnati the week prior beat UCLA. Now UCLA is not good; they're awful. But hear me out. What is the Army Black Knights known for doing? Running, and only running. I think Army Black Knights only attempted 6 passes. They only pass when they have to, only when it's late game and they have to get a pass, But their mantra is running. And Ohio State shut out Cincinnati. The Michigan Wolverines brought in a new offensive coordinator this year to help Shea Patterson out and kind of open the offense. But in my opinion, right now, as it stands right now, it looks worse than it did last year at this juncture. Because they put up points last year. But it looks like but right now, as it stands, it looks like it stalls. The defense, they lost a lot of talent to the NFL on defense, so maybe that's why. So maybe it's just gelling right now, but their offense over this offseason was the question. How will Shea Patterson be better this year with the spread attack? Now that he's been given more of the keys. They put up their points, but it's just not fast enough. And Ohio State and Cincinnati versus and if you look at it, Cincinnati held UCLA to just 64 yards of rushing. in week 1. Right? 62 yards rushing. Well, Ohio State this week shut out Cincinnati and rushed for and put up 270 yards of rushing on Cincinnati. So Cincinnati is not exactly a slouch on defense and stopping the run. They've proven versus UCLA that they can stop the run, and UCLA's mantra is running the ball. The Chip Kelly at Oregon, it was run first. They ran the ball to set up the pass. The play action pass. If they ran the ball, it opened up a play action pass and they'd throw it up over top. And they'd run it with Michael James, and they'd call the read option. And so it's always been about running. When they didn't run the ball well, the Oregon Ducks usually struggled. They didn't really have. Under Chip Kelly, they couldn't really pass it. They had the quarterback and receivers to do it, but it was all predicated on the play action pass, on that zone scheme. And then when you consider the fact that Ohio State, I think Ohio State beats Michigan because of it, but Ohio State ran for 278 yards total, and Justin Fields also added another 200 yards of passing. And for Michigan, when all of Army's good at is running, that's all they do, and you give up 200 yards to only a rushing team, and you only win by 3 points. How do you expect to stop Ohio State, who's run for 278 yards and also passed for another 200 plus yards? How do you expect to stop that? That's not good. You struggled with Middle Tennessee State. They 42 to 20 or 41 to 20. That's a blowout, but you heard the experts talking about how that was really sloppy. Michigan kind of struggled a little bit, and they did, and it showed again. And I said, and last week I did say that this would be a trap game for Michigan because they had to understand that Army could beat them, and they almost had another. And this was really close to being another Appalachian State. This is a year that they had a lot of Michigan. Whenever it seems Michigan has a lot of, they give a lot of optimism to Michigan. I think they're gonna be in the playoffs this year. There's always that one team at the beginning of the year, like Appalachian State, that comes in and beats them, or down the road, they allow Iowa to beat them or Michigan State to beat them, and then they lose to Ohio State, and then that's all she wrote. But right now, the way Michigan looks right now, as of right now, the Michigan Wolverines look like an 8-4 team. 8-4, that's it. Michigan's got the bye this week, but they've got a lot to think about. And they come out after their bye, they got Wisconsin, who's also capable of running the ball for 200 plus yards. And Wisconsin plays defense. Say what you want about them shutting out Central Michigan and South Florida, but shutting out, but it's really hard to do. It's really hard to shut out, even when it's garbage time, And you put in your second. Think about it. They probably put in their second stringers into the game versus Central Michigan and South Florida, and they still shut them out. Normally, that's when you think. That's when those teams put up their points. It's right at the end of the game when it's garbage time, and Wisconsin's just trying to get out. They've got the game won, and they're getting their inexperienced players experienced, and that's when they give up touch, and that's when they score. But Wisconsin, but South Florida and Central Michigan couldn't do that. that was supposed to, Wisconsin. Those were teams that Wisconsin was supposed to beat, and they did. And so I think this is I think you lose to Wisconsin because it's at Wisconsin, and I can't remember the last time Wisconsin beat Michigan, but Wisconsin appears to have the running game going now, and they've got the defense. You know how Michigan wanted, how Jim Harbaugh wanted to run his offense. It's and his team. This is exactly how Paul Kreis is running Wisconsin's. You know, they wanted to run the ball, you know, down your throat and play good defense. That's how Michigan wanted to run it, but since they didn't have the weapons available to them, or they didn't have the right quarterback, supposedly. Look at what Will Spate's doing right now with his new team. But at UC, I can't remember where Will Spate is, but look at what they're doing now. You know, I think you lose to Michigan State, though their offense has looked pretty stagnant. I think you could lose to Penn State. Penn State looks pretty good again. So there's just a lot of questions, you know. I don't see how you beat Ohio State, and that's the team you have to beat. I don't think you can afford a loss. This year Michigan has to go undefeated. They have to. They can't lose to Michigan State. They especially can't lose to Ohio State, but they can't lose to Wisconsin. They can't lose to Penn State. They can't lose to Iowa or Purdue. They have to go. In order, in my opinion, this is how I think the voters will. I think this is how the playoff committee will view Michigan. If they lose any of these games before Ohio State, it's over. They're gonna discount it and say, oh, you know, Michigan. They've done this the last 4 years under Jim Harbaugh. You know, they had that bad loss in the middle of the year, and then they lost to Ohio State, which I think is going to happen. And I think that'll be the end of Jim Harbaugh's time at Michigan. I hope not, but I don't like the way that Ohio State doesn't look like it's lost its depth since Urban Meyer has left. I think it's like the same. It's just a different head coach, you know. Same system, different coach. And so they got a lot of things to fix versus the bye. I don't think this is the one time that you don't want the bye. Actually, I think this is the right time for the bye, but we'll have to see because Michigan's in trouble right now, and anyone who wants to say that they're not and that it's just early season needs to get checked because we saw this last year, and they got blown out. You know, they struggled with Notre Dame, who Notre Dame wasn't very impressive either in the playoffs. You know, they didn't really hardly play anyone besides USC, who was 5-7 last year, or Stanford, who wasn't all that impressive either. You know, they lost. They barely beat Michigan, and Michigan also loses to Iowa last year. So there goes your chance. Or who did Michigan? What was Michigan's record last year? Michigan 2018. They went 10-3 last year. I mean, last year they were putting up 40. Last year versus Western Michigan, they put up 49 points, 3 points. They put up 40. They beat SMU 45-20. They beat Nebraska 56-10. Northwestern they had a close game 20-17. They blew out Maryland. They blew out Wisconsin. They blew out 21-7 Michigan State. They won. They blew out Penn State last year. I guess they didn't lose to Iowa last year. They didn't play Iowa last year, but I think you can see what I'm trying to say here. They can't lose at all. They can't lose. Just like Ohio State, it's been Ohio State gets blown out by Purdue last year, and then the year before they got blown out by Iowa, and that was all she wrote for Ohio State. Because the thinking is, if they get to Alabama and they got those blowouts and they got blown out by Purdue, they're gonna get crushed versus Alabama. So that's all she wrote. That's all she wrote. So Michigan's got a lot to work on. Some big games, we had some pretty big games in week 2. We obviously had the Texas and LSU game, which I'll get into in a bit. We also had the Clemson and Texas A&M game, which I told you about, which I warned people about. Arizona State. I'm going to talk about Arizona State, Missouri, Ohio. Let's talk about Ohio State already. Teams that are in trouble are Florida State, UCLA, Tennessee, and Miami. They all continue to struggle. Florida State did get it in the win column this week, but it didn't. But it wasn't pretty. That was a team that they should have beat handily. And now, in that loss, if they continue to win, that loss versus Boise State doesn't look very good anymore because Boise State only beat Marshall 14-7. So that loss doesn't look very good, given the competition. Maryland wins big versus the 21st ranked Syracuse. I think a lot of Syracuse's success came from Eric Dungy, the quarterback from last year. The senior quarterback from last year. Syracuse did win 10 games last year and only dropping 3 games. They won their bowl game versus the 15th ranked West Virginia in their bowl game. A lot of that was to Eric Dungy, the star quarterback who threw 18 touchdowns to only 9 interceptions for 2,868 yards on 60% completion, 60.9% completion, which is pretty good. This year, Tommy Davis takes over, and perhaps this year is an adjustment year, and it showed versus Maryland, who had the more experienced quarterback and transfer quarterback Josh Jackson from Virginia Tech. The Maryland won. The Terrapins won 63-20. I think Syracuse is not ranked anymore, but I think a lot of that was because of the quarterback play for Syracuse last year. Arizona State struggled with Sacramento State. They weren't very good on third down. They were 5 of 17 on third down, gave 3 sacks. They can't. Arizona State can't afford to struggle versus Michigan State, which I think Michigan State beats Arizona State. I think this is Arizona State's first loss. They struggled there. Missouri was too much for West Virginia. Kelly Bryant had a good game. He threw 3 touchdowns for 150 yards. Not that impressive, but 3 touchdowns. West Virginia's weakness appears to be stopping the run. 172 yards rushing given up. They gave up 172 yards rushing against James Madison, which they struggled with also, and 232 yards rushing versus Missouri. So it's just boom, 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 rush, rush, rush. You're not going to win many games if you can't stop the run. Great win for Missouri. This was a good win given the circumstances. Missouri right now is banned from competing in bowls, which for a lot of teams which can hurt a lot of teams because of recruiting purposes. And so it's good for them to get a win. Just and a big win. And hopefully it keeps the recruits coming. It's all about right now. I said last week. For Missouri. It's all about surviving that. It's all about surviving the virus, in my opinion. Cal upset 14th ranked Washington. Easton struggled and they turned the ball over. Cal's got a good defense, we all know that, but their offense still struggles. Huskies, I think, the Cal's got a good defense. It was shocking to say the least. You would have thought Washington would have put up a better fight versus Cal, but you can't turn the ball over. As I said before, you can't turn the ball over. Is not conducive to winning. I do think they can bounce back versus Washington. Versus Hawaii, because they got Hawaii at home, but Cal got a good win. I don't think Cal's going to be that good because of their offense. Their defense is loaded. They've still got one of the best defenses, but their offense is their downfall. LSU beat Texas 45-38. In my opinion, Texas needs to fix their defense before they can say they're back, because it's one thing to beat Oklahoma because it's in the Big 12 and not very many teams in Oklahoma. One of Oklahoma's banes is playing defense. It's one thing to beat Oklahoma because of the defense. It's a totally different animal to beat a team like LSU that plays defense. LSU didn't play a whole lot of defense either, but as you saw, LSU's max was up. Let's see. LSU's biggest lead was 45-31, and you can't. They were up 20. They were up 20-7 at one point, and then they were also up 45-31. That's not going to get it done. You can't have. And LSU made plays on defense, even though they gave up 38 points, which probably not acceptable for LSU. But Texas couldn't stop themselves either. They couldn't give up. They gave up more points early than LSU did, and they found themselves in a hole which they could never quite get out of. They came close to winning, but it wasn't enough. They ran out of time. So Texas needs to fix their defense. USC blew out Stanford. I was really impressed with sorry if I pronounced it, but I was really impressed with Keaton Slovis, JT Daniels' replacement. He had a field day with 377 yards of passing, 3 touchdowns and no interceptions, which is always good for a freshman quarterback who's been thrown into the fire. There's a lot of jitters. I played quarterback junior year in high school, and I got it on the field, and I remember being super nervous. I did okay, but it's hard. So kudos to him. USC appeared to have neutralized the run game of Stanford, making them one-dimensional and forcing them to beat them through the air. They did not. The Stanford Cardinal did not have KJ Costello, which may have led to that factor. But normally Stanford's always got a good running game, and they may have gone to more of a passing attack, but their mantra is still running the ball. I don't. I think. Kate. I think USC is okay now, but we'll have to see how Keenan Slovis does in the next game. But that's a good win for them. They needed that because they haven't looked all they didn't look all impressive versus Fresno State. But good win for them. Clemson, Colorado upset the 25th ranked Nebraska, 34-31 in overtime. I had Nebraska winning the game 34-31. So if I would have said Colorado, I would have gotten it right. But I think Nebraska will be fine. Though it's not, but it sounds like they get lost in coverages sometimes, and you have you have big plays due to it. You know, Colorado scored on a 96-yard pass play. The safety kind of stood there and had his eyes in the backfield instead of covering his guy, which practically ran right past him, similar to how that play with Josh Gordon or Philip Dorsett, you know, in the Patriots-Steelers game. You know, they had one safety deep, and they just got lost, and that was all she wrote for that. And that's called touchdown. I think Nebraska will be fine. You know, they're still learning. They're still finding their way. You can only get better from that. They obviously gotta learn how to close. They had the game won, but you have to, because they had quite a bit of a lead. Colorado rallied, and made more plays. But that was a good game. It was a rivalry game, so you know it has to sting for Nebraska. Clemson takes care of Texas A&M. The score only says 24-10, but it wasn't really that close, you know. I tried to warn you guys. I tried to warn you guys about the about guaranteeing things, because you know Joe Namath's really lucky that his Jets actually won the Super Bowl when he guaranteed that they would win. You know, can you imagine if Joe Namath lost the Super Bowl? You know, that would have been like a 30 for 30 film maybe. Like Joe Namath guaranteed the Super Bowl, but they lost. You know, and I predicted it. Now Clemson's had a whiteboard material, you know, and I said that Clemson might blow out, might indeed blow out Texas A&M now because of that, and they did. Texas A&M couldn't stop the run. 121 yards total rushing. None of the running backs really had a big game, but 121 yards is still pretty good. Given the low scoring game, you know, 121 yards is good. A blowout, you know. Don't worry. In my opinion, you shouldn't worry about Utah's victory at all. Utah just hired an old offensive coordinator with a running mentality similar to Michigan. This offense isn't built, in my opinion, to put up 60 points. Because it's not built for it. Oregon State's offense was that way for a long time as well. You would see 35-7 most often under Mike Riley as they ran the ball more than they passed it. You know, they had in 2013 they went more pass heavy, so you started seeing more points, you know. And so when the experts say Utah struggled, it's because like they struggled. Think about it. Their offense isn't built. They're not trying to score 60. They're trying to play defense, run the ball, score points, and win the game. That's what they're doing. If they blow the team out, fine. If it's only 35 points, it's fine. That's what Utah wants to do. That's what Utah is doing. I mean, Utah only averages 30 points. I mean, Utah only averages 30 points. They had 35 this week and 30 last week. So don't worry about Utah, because they'll only be better. Because they'll be fine. Now I'm gonna get into next week. Washington State. I'm gonna do Pac-12 because it's the conference. There aren't a whole lot of intriguing matchups this week. In general, there aren't any ranked matchups this week. So there aren't a lot of matchups, ranked matchups this week. So I just decided to go with Pac-12 this week. But I will give you my upsets, where I think you could see some upsets possibly though. Oregon State lost to Hawaii, which is fine. Well, the way they lost wasn't good, but they're getting there. But anyway, to start off the week, we got Washington State versus Houston. Washington State, I think, wins big, 56-21. It is in Houston, though. It is at Houston, but I just think Mike Leach is probably the best coach in the Pac-12. Agree or disagree, but you can agree with me or you can disagree. But who else can take it? But think about it. You got Connor Halliday to Luke Falk to Garner Minshew to who was the to Garner Minshew to this forget who the quarterback is now, but they can plug him in and still win. They looked impressive. They still throw the ball all over the place, and Houston doesn't seem to be able to do that. They couldn't do it versus Oklahoma, which passes the ball. So that's what I think they win big. Oregon State, I've got beating Cal Poly 49-14 for Oregon State's first win. Fifth, I got Oregon. I got 15th ranked Oregon beating Montana 59-3. There's no contest in either of those games. Colorado will take on Air Force, but be careful. As I said before, be careful because Air Force is another run heavy team. So I think Colorado needs to be careful here. But I do think Colorado wins 30-17. USC versus BYU. This could be a close game. I think USC is ranked 24th now, and I think they beat BYU 35-24. Though I think their quarterback Keaton Slovis will struggle a little bit here. I think no one had a lot of film on him, but now they have film, and so I think kind of surprised him. I think it kind of surprised Stanford, but I think USC beats them though. Then Stanford is traveling to UCF. I think to the 17th ranked UCF Knights. I think UCF will beat Stanford. 17-10 because I don't think UCF's going to blow out Stanford, but I do think UCF beats them. Then you got Michigan State taking on Arizona State. Michigan State and Arizona State are struggling to score points. Their defenses are good, but their offenses are struggling. I think Michigan State is, but because it's in Lansing, East Lansing, and Michigan State is ranked 18th. I think Michigan State hands Arizona State's its first loss, and it's 20-17. Then Cal goes and faces North Texas. Now North Texas is a good team. They were pretty good last year, but Cal I think wins 38-13 just based on Cal's defense. Utah I think will shut out Idaho State, 45-0. Washington has Hawaii at home. The 23rd ranked Washington Huskies have Hawaii. I think this is an upset. I think I'm putting Hawaii. I think I'm putting Washington on upset alert. They beat Hawaii has beaten two Pac-12 teams so far in Arizona and Oregon State. Even though those aren't very good teams. I have no reason to doubt the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors now. I actually have Hawaii beating Washington 30-24. I think they can. I think Rainbow Warriors can come in and beat the Washington Huskies. It might also be a blowout the other way though. But I think this is an upset. UCLA travels to Oklahoma. Oklahoma travels to UCLA to take on the Bruins. UCLA is not good. I think UCLA is worse than Oregon State. Let me know if you agree with that, but I think UCLA is worse than Oregon State. They can't seem to do anything right. They can't even beat San Diego State, which only puts up 6 points versus I can't remember who they played. Cal Poly. They can't even beat that team. And so I say Oklahoma because it is number 5 Oklahoma. I think the Sooners beat the Bruins 59-24. 24 points because Oklahoma might not play much defense. They'll play defense, but I think UCLA will get their points in garbage time. And then Texas Tech takes on Arizona. I don't believe in the Wildcats, and because they did give up. Well, they did win last week. They also gave up 41 points. It was 65-41. You can't do that. So I think Texas Tech beats Arizona 38-14. So the winners I have in the Pac-12 are Washington State, Oregon, USC, Colorado, Cal, and Utah. The upset alerts, these are all conferences. I have UCF, Stanford. I think UCF could be on upset alert because it's Stanford, and I believe in David Shaw. I got Hawaii at Washington. There's no reason to believe that Hawaii can't beat Washington given the state of the Pac-12 right now, and the fact that Hawaii just beat 2 Pac-12 teams. So there's no reason to believe that they can't do that. Pitt. I've also got Pitt versus Penn State. Pitt's a pretty good team. They had an unlucky break early in the season, but it's a rivalry game. So I can see them upsetting Penn State, who's ranked 13th. Now this one's not a ranked versus a ranked team, but I think Tennessee. But the way the Tennessee Volunteers have played this year, I think all bets are off now. I think Chattanooga. I think they should be put on upset alert versus Chattanooga. Just for the simple fact that of the way they're playing. BYU and I think USC is. I'm putting USC on upset alert because they take BYU. They play BYU this weekend. Then I got number 19 Iowa, who's playing Iowa State, and Michigan State obviously is ranked number 18th. I could see Arizona State beating them, but they can't struggle again. Kentucky versus Florida. I think this might be a trap game for Florida. Florida's expected to win, but it is SEC play, and the Kentucky Wildcats were pretty good last year. They weren't great, but they were all right. Kentucky's definitely a team that Florida needs to be careful of because Florida could be looking ahead to tougher opponents, and that's when you lose. Florida State is taking on 25th ranked Virginia. Virginia, we'll have to see how the Virginia. I think Virginia beats Florida State, but it is Florida State still, and I have to believe that Florida State is a tough opponent for. They should be a tough opponent for Virginia, even though Florida State is reeling right now. Now, I personally believe Willie Taggart needs to go. I don't think he's the right coach for the Florida State Seminoles. I just don't. I don't think he's that good of a coach. You know, his team looks eerily similar to the Oregon Ducks in 2017. You know, they struggled on offense, and they got up to leads and then their defense would fall apart, or they'd have big leads and then they'd lose them, or their offense would be neutralized and they didn't have anywhere else to go. So I don't think Willie Taggart's the right man for the job. At an environment that's used to winning, 37 straight bowl appearances. Their bowl appearances streak ended last year. They only won 5 games under Taggart, and I think this will be another year of that because Clemson's on your schedule still. And I don't still see it going anywhere. And because Florida State is used to winning, they're gonna start calling for Taggart's head, in my opinion. It's unfortunate, but it's true. I mean, look at what Jimbo Fisher has done to Texas A&M. I mean, Texas A&M's got some optimism finally. I mean, I think Willie Taggart's better served as a coach at a like a group of 5 level school. But so yeah, that is so that concludes my college. That concludes my picks in college and the college football portion. I do kind of want to talk quickly about the Mountain View Cougars. They lost to Roseburg 33-30. Their coaches said that they turned the ball. They had a early fumble which cost them and a couple penalties and they did fight back, but they couldn't quite recover from it. I think so. They have some improvement to do. What I will say is I hope you guys, if you're watching this, I hope you guys don't lose faith because I believe in you and I've got all the confidence in the world. I think you guys are great, and I think this is a good test for you now because how do you respond to adversity? I think you can get it versus Sandy. I'll be there. I'll definitely be at the game, but I'm confident you guys can bounce back, and I can't wait to go. But yeah, just just know that we're all rooting for you guys, and that one loss doesn't define you guys, because you guys are still awesome. Thank you guys for watching this podcast. The next episode will come next week. Let me know if you agree with my picks and stuff, and let me know what you didn't like. Is the video length right? Is there something I can improve upon, or what? But yes, again, thank you for watching. This has been the Hess Sports Podcast, and I hope you like and subscribe and share with your friends. Let's see if we can get past 51 views. And subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe and hit that bell icon, and I'll be back. And I'll be back in the next week with another episode of Hess Sports Podcast. Thank you so much. I am truly grateful for you guys' support on this, and let's go, and thank you. Have a good day, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Chef 2K out.